Welcome to Vibrant Living Conversations. I'm your host, Gemma Putty. As a life coach to midlife women, I'm excited to bring these conversations from North Idaho and across this region to support you on your journey to vibrant living, glowing from the inside out, fully living in your own true to you power. I'm continuing to celebrate my 50th interview. Woo woo! With 3 interviews. So I reached out to a few amazing humans who are truly doing the work, digging deep, aligning, and riding the roller coaster of life, all while shining bright in our community. My final conversation is with Jaki, Human Design Guide. I interviewed Jaki for episode number 21 back in 2021, where we talked more broadly about human design. And since then, I know Jaki has been living more and more through her own design to live her authentic truth. So I'm excited to have Jaki here today to dive into that more. Welcome, Jaki. Thanks for joining me again.
You.
Yay! For sure. So on living in your true you-ness, authenticity is a word that's overused a lot, but I like to define it as that true you-ness. What does that mean to you, and what has it meant for you on your journey through human design?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Authenticity. It's a thing. And especially living in our society, really pulling off all the layers of the unewness to feel like you can fit in, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's a journey. Yeah, I feel like when I found human design, it literally like made so much sense and gave me that roadmap of like how I can operate in
Yeah.
this world. And so essentially that's what helped me. And same with like astrology too, to be like, wait, this is who I am, and I don't have to like push up against it and try to be something that I'm not to feel like I fit in.
Yeah.
And I think that's like always changing though too. Like there's that core you within there, but then as you grow and change in those phases of life, it's shifting and changing. So like maybe certain things that felt good back in your 20s, now you're 35 and you're like, actually, I'll go to the show, but I'm gonna leave like pretty early. Or maybe I just won't go at all and feel okay about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, authenticity, I think it's there, but it's changing, and having the courage to be in that can also be something that a lot of people have to like practice.
Yeah, for sure. We should probably remind people what human design is. Do you have an elevator pitch on it? Because I'm like, they might have not listened
Absolutely.
to episode 21 yet. They'll go listen to it later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, human design is a modality that you use your birth time, date, and location, and you really need to know your exact time to have the accurate map that appears when you put it into this database. And within that, there are 5 types, and that within those types, they share like what your aura type is and how you're here to operate and move through the world with more ease and less resistance. Doesn't mean that it's easy, but as you continue to practice it, it does become easier, and it's easier to see when you are out of alignment, and get back into that alignment. And essentially, when we're living in our proper alignment, then what we're here to do, as in like our soul mission, is laid before us, and we just bloom into that, and our soul purpose is we're living in that. And a lot of people that I have read for are like, holy smokes, that totally resonates with me. Like, share with me the ways in which I can live by my design. Yeah, it's really fascinating, but
and
it's
it's complex too, right? Like you
oh, it's
really, this is very obviously high level. If you Google human design chart, you can see there's so many factors playing
yeah,
into it. And it's a lot of ancient wisdom, right? Like you said,
yes,
astrology. I know they talk chakras, they talk so
the
many
ET.
layers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty radical, and it's awesome. And like if you look at it, you're like, what in the world does this mean? And so I'm really fortunate that I can look at it and just be like, blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
there's so much depth to it too. So essentially when you go in, you talk about what type you are, and then your strategy and authority. And generally that's how I start with people. And then if they want to go deeper, we can go even deeper where there's like channels and gates and your like actual incarnation cross, which is essentially like the phrase of what you're here to do and be and operate in the world, and bring to the world your gift. Yeah. Yeah. It's really complex, but, I think since the last time I've talked to you, actually, I had created a program called Soul Discovery, and I worked with about 9 people for 3 months consistently. So some of them we met weekly, some of them every other week, just depending on their life and what they had going on. And I sent them lectures weekly around human design. And then when we had our check-ins, it was about them and them practicing living by their design. And I still get messages to this day that they are just so grateful that I was with them through that journey of deconditioning, essentially like moving more into their truth and how they're here to operate and how beautiful their life's like unfolding. It's really neat because it is a lot. And it can be hard to shift into a different way of being, which is essentially the way you're here to be. But like if you've been conditioned to be a certain way, for example, like maybe a people pleaser, or you know what I
Yeah,
mean, like
right.
shifting out of that it's hard,
Yeah.
you know.
Will you talk a little bit about your story, like going off of that stories and frameworks of how we're programmed by our parents, by our initial lived experiences, and as you were coming into finding human design, like what were the things that really cracked you open and opened your eyes and kind of give some examples, please?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, with research now, thank God for people doing all of that for all these years. It really has shown that like prenatal health and our early childhood development really matters, especially a relationship with our parents or our primary caregivers, whoever that may be. But essentially, that relationship is just so important. And that attunement or lack of attunement can really just create how we experience the world. And as we know, yeah, there's just so much trauma. And that is like also a big word these days now too, which is great. I think that there's a lot more awareness around it, and trauma can be just little things that happen continuously or really big things, and it can really shift just how we operate in this world. And also with just society, like what we see on the TV, what we hear, what we're eating, and all of the things can really just shape how we are. And so for me growing up, my parents were quite young. They were really young kiddos. They were 17. So it was like, holy smoke. So trying to, have a baby and figure that all out while still going to high school. So I love my parents, but definitely a huge lack of attunement. They didn't even know who the heck they were, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so I'm a projector, and in human design, projectors, we make 20% of the population. So we're a pretty small percentage. And for us, this energy type, well, we're not an energy type, our type, our aura, we really need that connection on such a deeper level than the other types, the generators, manifesting generators, and manifestors. We all do need connection. Like, do not get me wrong on that. That is a human need. But for projectors, it's pretty significant. So I feel like yeah, anyways, there's so many things about that. But I was always really seeking belonging in a depth that was bigger than a lot of people around me. And so luckily we lived up in the woods, so I found a lot of my connection with nature. And then we moved to Coeur d'Alene, just 30
Yeah.
minutes away, and it was like culture shock. So just trying to find my way to fit in. And projectors are also really good at shifting and like putting on like trying on different things and ways to be to fit in. And
Yeah.
so I feel like I went through that a bit to just really find my people. And there was a lot of really big lessons in that. And essentially, yeah, it was a trip. But I remember after high school, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to keep doing what the norm is, which is essentially, party
Yeah.
and all these things. And I started going to college, and I ended up going into the social work realm, which, you learn a lot about human behavior and the environment and all of these things. And that really just sparked my interest in learning more about just the human. And it was making a lot of sense for me, all the things I'd experienced and why I was struggling, on because my brother, he's a manifesting generator, and he experienced a lot of the same things I did, but he's just like, whatever, just going on living his
Yeah.
life. And I'm like, I am having a hard time and noticing my relationship patterns within friends and my intimate partners. And so learning about attachment theory, that really just got me so excited to be like, oh my gosh, how can I shift and change and grow from this knowledge? And so Dan Siegel is an incredible doctor, neuroscientist, attachment guru. So I started doing work through his website,
Okay.
and that was really helpful. But I still kept attracting people that I'm
Yeah.
like, what is going on? And um yeah, then I found human design because I was really, I continued to search. And by this time it was 2019. So I think this is when, for me anyways, I'm like, what is podcasts? I was a little behind the game, and I found I found some conversations, and then I went down that rabbit hole, and Mark Groves interviewed this gal named Lacey Phillips. It was one of his first episodes. And she mentioned human design just for a second. And I'm like, ooh, this sounds fascinating. And I dived into it. And I yeah, I had to do a lot of research to figure it out, because when you pull up your chart, it doesn't really tell you. It's like,
Right.
this is what you are. You're a projector. Okay, what does that mean though? I don't know. And then there's this little shape of a person with all these shapes, and you're like, what does this mean? So when I found somebody, and I think I ended up getting a mini reading, and then I took her course because my intuition, which you're a manifestor, you're a splenic manifestor, and I'm a splenic projector. So our instinct is how we're here to make decisions. So when we get that call, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, let's go. And so I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I did it, but I've never felt so understood. And I started to live by my design the best that I could. And the relief that I felt was immediate in my life. And so I I was like, I'm a full-on believer.
What were a few of the things that you started to do that you're like, or stop doing? I mean,
Yeah.
because I feel like some of the stuff in midlife, I'm not even midlife, sorry, early life, right? Where we're in school, we're all like, I don't know, are we part of drama? Or are we part of the cool kid? Or are we part of the sports? Or right? We're I don't
Yeah.
know, we're dancing around. But then this part in life, like
Mm.
you're saying, you're just getting rid of
Mhm.
what doesn't work. So what were a few of those things that you either took on or ditched to be like, now I know what I am, and when you
Mhm.
started to feel more aligned?
Yeah, like I was saying, in my early 20s, I was really just learning a lot about just the what a healthy relationships were. And I'm like, my
Yeah,
whole life I've been living in dysfunction. And
right.
as projectors, our aura is honed in and penetrating, and that can feel really uncomfortable to people.
Yeah.
Um, and or it can feel really good and delicious. They're like, give me more of your energy, and that can be really draining. But I think for me, in those years, I was really fighting against my own truth so that I could feel like I fit in. And I'm not meaning like in a huge drastic way, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't really want to go to this thing, but man, I'm really craving connection. So I'm going to go anyways.
Yeah.
And then there would be certain interactions within the circumstances, and it would just feel really uncomfortable. And so I would leave not feeling good, right? And so as I started learning more about attachment and all the things, I started shifting, but then I would still be entering into relationships or going and doing things that were not how I was meant to like go into. Like I overrid my initial instincts.
Mm,
Um, so for projectors, strategy is to wait for the invitation. So there would be like a lot of things going on and people would just be talking about it. And then I'd be like, oh, I want to come. And they're like, oh, yeah, whatever, come, and then I would go and then I would feel like for projectors too, one of like the downsides of like inviting yourself is like feeling a big sense of rejection, especially if it's not, I mean, as you move through your relationships and you enter them properly, there's what's called an open invitation where it's a bit different, where like you do have that open invitation, whereas when you don't and you're inviting yourself, man, it feels so uncomfortable and it hurts really bad. So that was like one of my really big things was, oh, I'm just gonna like step back, and when I hear people talking about all the things, I'm not going to invite myself, and I'm going to feel that discomfort. But this discomfort, like what I had learned through my experiment in the beginning, was so much easier to be with than me going to the event and like something happening or just feeling really ignored and then
yeah.
leaving and crying and like, why can't I find my people?
Yeah.
It was like just that little shift was huge. And then listening to my instinct. So there are seven different ways to make decisions, and that's what is called your authority in human design.
Okay.
And so for you and I, it's our spleen, which is
Yeah.
the oldest
Mm,
decision-making mechanism. So it's like instinctual. And we get that ping right away. So it's like, okay, are we going to listen to that or not? And then when we don't, it just doesn't flow as nice. Or I mean, and it's not to say that it's good or bad to not follow it. We learn our lessons along the way, but
yeah.
it's like, well, shoot, here it is.
Yeah.
Experiment with it and see how it goes. And
So do you get that like as a drop in? Like I don't so often it's like when I'm doing yoga or on a walk where it's just kind of like a drop in of like this is what you are going to do, and then I sign up for my master's program 2 seconds later or something like where I'm like,
yeah,
well, of course this is what I'm. Is that how you experience it?
definitely.
Is
Well, for me, yes, but I think mine might be a little more subtler because you are a manifester.
okay.
And you have like your aura and how you are here to operate is like you are the game changer. Like you're here to get in there and like
No
clear the
pressure.
way. Yeah. And you get more of those like really loud downloads. Like,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And so as a projector, I mean, and it depends to what's activated in your chart, right?
Right. Yeah.
But for me, it can be really quiet. But if it's something that's like the universe is like, do not ignore this. It does get really loud. Like with the human design thing, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is really interesting. And then I'd like do my research and then I'd get like, okay, you need to sign up for this class. And I'm like, no, 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 I don't have the money. And it's like, no, you need to figure it out. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. And I'm so glad that I did. But but yeah, it's generally a little quiet knowing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, but yeah, I can like, especially for manifestors, though, your downloads come in pretty loud.
Yes.
And you are meant to like act, like you said, like act on it quickly. So
Interesting. And
yeah.
it is like you said, though, it's a game too of trusting that. And yeah, yeah, trusting it. I mean, like, all right, this isn't just some like weird ego drop in. This is like much bigger than me and guiding me on my sole purpose. Like, no
Yes.
big deal. Oh shit.
Just
Right.
don't ignore it though. Like
Yeah.
when we have been conditioned to be so like detached from our bodies
Yeah,
and our
totally.
emotions. And I think a big part of what we're here to do, the people here now, especially the younger kiddos too, it's like we're here to gain that emotional intelligence. And that's like the next level of this
Yeah.
evolution of humans, is to gain that emotional intelligence. And I think for you and I, like, and the people a little bit older than us too, given the right opportunities to start to do a lot of the healing work that like our parents weren't able to do, and the generations prior to that. And that can be, it's a big job, and it can be really painful,
Yeah, no, for
but
sure. Right. I'm in a
that is,
somatic class right
oh,
now. And the word somatic, like it sounds so sexy, but really it is just being in your body. It's listening
mhm,
to this beautiful being that you have been gifted to live this life and know that she is communicating with you and you can step back into her, which sounds crazy, right? But like to be living from within yourself rather than like I think you're even saying is like outside of yourself to please other people and to try and fit into the world. It's like getting back into your body
wow.
to live your own design, to embrace it. And I think human design is so beautiful and then that it gives you permission to be in yourself, to respect your own perspective. I think you mentioned it before with your brother, like he's a manifesting generator and is you're experiencing the same situations in such vastly different ways. And that's why you've got to be on your own journey of healing and unpeeling the layers because your brother, this same family, is like, that's not how I experienced it. And is having, so it's really
Yeah,
truly coming back to yourself and like being intimate with yourself, right? Like, in that, I am the only one that knows my truth. I am the expert of my own life. And it's not me, like, God is in you as you, right? Like, obviously, when you look at the chart, you're like, this is much bigger than me. The stars are at play, and all of this stuff is at play within me. Like, how magical, right?
totally. And Ra Ruhu, he really, like, his whole thing is just know thyself and love yourself. And like once, and it all is about being in our true authentic self, you
I
know?
love it so much.
Yeah.
You were talking before about there's 7 ways to make decisions. Where it's just
Mhm.
one of them. Will you mention the other 6 just really quick so someone can be like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, maybe
Oh,
that's
what am
me."
I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for generators, they only have two options, which is the sacral or an emotional authority. And so the sacral actually is only just for generators. And so, and then there's so the spleen and ego, which that is, I believe, only manifestors have the ego, which is actually, I think there can be projectors too. That essentially is like our heart. So in human design, there's 9 centers rather than 7 centers in the chakra system. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so the ego really isn't like ego, like what we would label it as in like this paradigm, but like it's that willpower of following your heart.
Gotcha.
And then there's the self projected projector. So that also is just like speaking, like them having a soundboard to like talk to people about what's going on. And as they're speaking it, they hear their truth and they know their truth.
Mm,
And then there's environments, which that I believe is just projectors too. So projectors have the most diverse ways of making decisions. And then that one really, it's like they're pretty empty in their like whole, um, they're like the chakras, the like the centers are open.
okay.
I think they might have like 1 or 2 chakras defined. So they're really susceptible to their environment. So it's really important for them to be in the right environments to know that they're living by their truth so that they could have like the most hardest time because it's
Gotcha.
like it shifts and change really easily within their environment. So like having those safe people to be able to really share, which we know can be really hard sometimes because a lot of people have their opinions. And it's like, oh, I'm just here and I'm this is what's going on. Oh, well, you should do this or you should do that or screw that person, whatever. And you're like, oh, no, I'm really, and for those individuals, it can be really confusing for them because they're like, wait, I thought this was my truth. Now I talk to them and now I feel like this might be my truth. So and that can be true for other and like other types too. It just depends on how open your chart is.
Gotcha.
You are more impacted by the people around you and the content and things that you take in. So I don't know if that was all of them. Then the reflector, that is the lunar cycle. So they literally, so reflectors are 1% of our population. And so these individuals need like a whole 30 days before they make a decision. And they're the only ones with lunar cycle. Yeah. So for them, and they're like always, they're completely open. They do not have any centers defined. They may have some gates or they don't have channels, but they might have some gates activated, but their centers are either completely open or undefined. So they need that whole lunar cycle to really look at the like whatever's going on and get like the full 360 view of the thing. But that doesn't mean it's like, oh, what do you want to eat for breakfast? Well, I gotta wait a whole month. No, it's not like that. Like it's like the bigger things
Right.
in life. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
It's
Um
so cool. Do
it's,
you,
it's really
so
cool.
even in like parenting, I know you're in a relationship now. Do you want to touch on, and don't feel like you have to, touch on
Mhm.
any of how human design has supported you in like some of the
Yeah.
key roles, even your career too, like
Yes.
where, you know, like,
Well,
yeah.
I want to talk about relationship
Yeah.
because that's where like a lot of my
Yeah.
lessons have been, right? And so
Yeah.
my previous partner, we met and we had a lot of fun. And this is before I knew human design, but he really liked, like, it seemed like we liked each other. And then he hadn't asked me to be his girlfriend yet, but I was like, do you want to be my boyfriend? And he was like, yeah. And so that is not how you do it for a protector. You do not do that. So I entered it incorrectly. So anyways, a year and a half later, but like my intuition after like a little while longer was like, nope, this is a no. But I did not listen. I was like, well, there's so much potential. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
had fun, you guys, like whatever, but it's a no. I stuck it out and it was horrible. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy, but it was like just a lot of the experiences were just like I kept pushing, because society's like, well, you just gotta try, you just gotta try. And I'm like, well, we're like in the beginning still, and like there's all these things. And I was still learning a lot about relationships too. Well, we broke up, I broke up with him, found human design, and just started like analyzing all my past relationships too, of like, oh, okay, this is making sense. And so my current partner is a manifester. And so we knew each other through the community and stuff, but I hadn't seen him in a while. And he had also been recently out of a relationship. It'd been a little while, but he like passed me in the store and he like stopped and he like turned back around. Okay, total manifester right here. And he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "What's up?" We talked for a couple minutes, and he went on his way, and I was like, "Oh, that was fun." Then he kept seeing me in the community, and he gave me his number, and we went out for tea, and he asked me to be his girlfriend, and so
Oh,
yeah, so we definitely, we still have our normal like relationship things that everybody has to go through and figure out and learning each other, but energetically there's just like this deeper sense of like this is right,
yeah. Yeah. I love
but
that
yeah,
so
it
much.
was like holy smokes. And I've never felt like so seen, like
Yeah.
in my design. And then you mentioned like career and stuff too. It was actually really difficult for me within my human design business that I had started because marketing is not for projectors. And I didn't have like access to all the money to be able to like pay somebody to advertise for me.
Yeah.
And so I was getting like some traction with like word of mouth, but um through like just where I was at, I think vibrationally, like attracting people that didn't have enough money, which is it is what it is, but in the manifestation world are just like frequencies, right? It's like I still have things I need to work through to be able to attract the clients that first and foremost want to do the work and who
Yeah.
have money so I can survive. So a couple summers ago, I ended up getting a job at this place, Culinary Stone. And
Love
but I
culinary stuff.
like, yeah, I got like the invitation to work there and it felt really good at first. And then it slowly started to not feel right. And I did not listen and quit, you know. I was like, oh, it'll get better, right? So I've been living in my design for a while. And man, in human design, you have what's called your not self theme. And for projectors, it is bitterness. And I haven't had
Mm.
bitterness in a while. And then one day I left work and I was just like so upset. And I talked to one of my other friends who practices human design. He was like, Jackie, you're in your not self. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I haven't been here in so long. Like, okay, I have to like leave this job.
Yeah.
And but it was just really interesting too, because it's like once you start to practice it and then you like step out of it, it feels so uncomfortable. And you're like, I don't want to do that. Even if me living by my design might be hard sometimes, like that is better than like going full on into the just not the right way to be. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
That's
find
not.
that so interesting with so many people, careers specifically, because
Mhm.
we do kind of set that up in earlier stages of life where a lot of us are like in la la land about who we are and all the things. So you get to midlife when you're like ready to do the work, you're ready for the awakening, but you're so set up in one way of making money. You've done your education in that, and then you're like, but I'm stuck. Like
Mhm.
so it's interesting and I don't even have answers to it, but I just see a lot of people in that struggle of like knowing it doesn't align for them, but also being like, but I have bills to pay. I still live in this world and there's like things that need taking care of and I have kids and blah blah blah, blah
Mhm.
right? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting, yeah.
And there's like this deep void in us of trying to fulfill because we don't know who we are. And like
Yeah.
such a like a game that they've created to be like to program us to be consumers. So
Yes.
essentially we're in homes that we don't own, but like, you know, we have all these cars that cost so much money and we're like, how did we get here? How can I get out of this? Well, now you can't. And now it's
Yeah.
like even painful to be like, I want to know who I am, but like to do that, then I know I'm living a life that's crushing my soul at a deeper level because now I have all this
Yeah.
awareness. So what do I choose? Like,
Right.
you know, like,
Yeah.
because it is easier just to be in it, like, okay, I'm just going to keep going to work until I get all this paid off. But it's like, but yeah, when?
Yeah,
When
totally.
will that happen until there's like that midlife crisis or something? But yeah, because as we're growing up, you know, we're taught a lot to be like quiet or, oh, that wouldn't be a good idea to do that. That won't make money or, you know, like just we just get squashed in so many little ways and then
Yeah.
just, oh man. And then what we see and what we hear, it really does get in there in that subconscious. And then we're, yeah, it's really fascinating.
Totally.
But we
And
can
I,
break free.
yes, and I
It's
think
gonna
that's
be a
where
little hard,
it
but
doesn't have to be all or nothing too. I think that's why
exactly.
I'm like right now, I feel like I'm in that transition period of a still working corporate job, which actually makes me angry. Jackie, you just gave me this aha. And I'm like, that is my
Yeah.
like,
That's your
that
not
is, and
self.
I'm like, I've always said, well, for the last in the somatic class, I'm like, I don't get angry. What does anger even feel like? And I'm like, I do get angry at work at people being like, I won't go there,
Yeah.
but that's interesting. And but anyway, then but not quitting because I'm like, I need that and I make good money and it whatever, right? But also knowing using that anger as more like, okay, let's transmute this into motivation and commitment to continuing to having conversations and coach and do the things that will allow me to align more because that the more that I do those things that allow me to align, like
Right.
that lights you up so much, right? Like that's the pull. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, whatever it's going to take, here I am, because that's how I am meant to feel in day to day life. And I want to feel it more often.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you. I think, yeah, it's not all or nothing because, like, literally how our world is structured right now, or like in America, like, you can't, like, literally, unless, like, man, I really hope my kids don't ever have to experience this because I've they live by their design, and we have conversations, and our relationship is so well. And it also, I've, knowing attachment and stuff and taking the circle of security parenting course, and I'm a facilitator in that. So it's like, I really do understand the importance of all of that. So my kiddos, I feel like, are in their authentic self. And yeah, they are at this age now where they are bumping up against like group norms and all these things, but we have these continued conversations, so that my hope is that they don't lose who they are to fit in, that they will be the way showers to allow their friends to be who they are, but also have boundaries of like what a healthy friendship looks like. And we've had a lot of conversations because, there's a lot of kiddos come from hard places, a lot of us do. And the shows that we're watching, it's like, these are not healthy things to be watching. And that is not how a relationship should be. Friendship, especially right now with my kids, right? Like, I'm like, you can like people, and if you really, really like them, we're gonna have conversations, but you guys are not in the realm right now to be having boyfriend, girlfriend, like, I don't know. That's like later, because and we talk a lot about the brain, and like why, and then they like watch their friends go through it all, and they're like, oh my God, mom, oh, the drama. I'm like, aren't you glad that you're just focusing on your friends? And that's what's gonna matter, because 99% of these relationships, these boyfriend girlfriend relationships, are not going to last. And then they're going to miss out on all those fun times with their friends. And that's what I share with kids. And they're seeing it real time. But
and they're 11 and 13, right?
Yes.
For
So
everyone listening,
all of them are going to be in middle school now. And so it's like, that's my hope of them living by their design. And I already see it so well. Like, and it makes my heart so happy, just like the strength and the confidence that they have. And yes, they are, in puberty, pre-puberty, they are experiencing a lot of things, and they have their emotions. So like, by living your design, it doesn't mean you don't experience life and it's just super easy. Like, it's there, but it's easier to have these experiences because you're not being not who you are. Like, you know what I mean? There's not all of these other things. And so I hope that when they do get to the after high school, whatever they choose to do with their education or job, like, that they have that more sense of ease of just going and finding what really lights them up and gets them happy, and for me, like, I felt like I had to go through a lot of like deaths and rebirths through my whole process of stepping into my design, and then feeling my calling, and then seeing like where just the doors were opening and where they weren't, and just really like just going with it and trusting. But and for you and I, it's like, we do need this income to support our families. And if other things aren't opening up yet, that's okay. But I'm so glad and proud of you for continuing on the journey of following those downloads you're getting to take like the somatic class. And you were like, thank you. You were doing this like chakra series last time I talked to you, and like working with somebody. And so it was like, through all of that, as you gain all of this like wisdom, like, who knows what's going to unfold, and when it is right, it's going to be effortless and it's going to flow properly. And then sometimes you just have to like balance it out with that corporate job sometimes, and knowing that it's not forever, right?
Well, and it has benefits in this physical world, right? Like, it's so funny to think about it. Like, the corporate jobs are so like, they give you the health benefits and the blah 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 for being in this physical world, plain. And then the bigger picture stuff that you keep chipping away at whenever you can, that brings you into so many different dimensions and depths, and it just is so cool. But I love that you're giving that language to your children. I think that's what it sounds like you and I both were missing at that age, is like not having the vocabulary and the lessons, of course, that go with that, to even have conversations about like, how do I make decisions, and who am I versus who is my brother versus who are my parents, right? Like, and that's how, that's, of course, you become the sheep because you're like, oh, I should be following what the popular kid is doing or whatever.
Yeah, it's so, being a human is quite fascinating and interesting. And and I'm just like, oh my gosh, so thank God for human design though, because both of my kids are emotional. So my son is a generator. He's an emotional authority, and my daughter is a manifesting generator, and she's also an emotional authority. So emotional authorities, it does so you and I are splenic, so we're like primal, and then they're actually the highest. They're at the top of the authorities. So their way of making decision is the most evolved, right? But that
Oh,
sounds so backwards because of the way we've been conditioned to process and experience our emotions. So it's like,
right.
right. So that emotional intelligence is so important. So like my kiddos having the experiences that they're having, and the human design tool, and having that, like, wow, they're going to be really impactful to our culture,
Yeah.
for that.
So,
But because a
oh,
lot of
yeah.
people are not emotional intelligent, they don't understand, and it's really scary, man.
Yeah.
Like emotions can be so beautiful, but really scary, especially because we've been taught to suppress them or ignore them, or they don't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
And
Totally
like, look
agree.
at the health of the world. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like,
We do know, right? We're like, that's
yeah,
why we're like, focus on our children. Like, they're the next
yeah,
generation. Be the light we wish to see in the world, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I love this so much. Human design is, I dabble in and out of it because I did look up my kids' chart at one point and my husband's, because I'm like, okay, I just want to know, like, even how they energize, and now that Beckett's about to be 5, Matilda's about to be 2, like, even
oh my
more being
goodness.
able to like step into it more and have those conversations, because it's, yeah, I love it. You're so
Do you know
inspiring.
what they are off of the top of your head?
No, I don't. I think they're both. No, I don't. I think my
Okay.
son is a manifester. I feel
Oh,
like my daughter is a manifesting generator. My
cool.
son's also a Leo, so and I'm sure
Ooh.
those all play in. My vocabulary isn't half as good as yours is
Oh
on this
my,
topic,
a
but
manifester and a Leo. Boy, he was here to make some big change. I would love to talk
Guardians.
about their charts with you
I
sometime, because I
know
think
that would be
it's,
so fun.
yeah, and especially just understanding how they do process emotions and how they're here to make decisions and start to embed that into them. Like,
Yeah,
with what I was saying too, with the emotional authority, is like, it does take them some time, like they might need to sit with something to really know if it's a yes or a no for them. And
yeah,
sometimes they get that, but when they get their answer, it's so clear that it's like, this is my truth, and so for me and you, it's like, okay, we know right now.
yeah, yeah,
And then it might change, like a week later, you go do the same thing and you're like, this is a no. Okay, well, we got to trust that. Whereas like before it'd be like, well, you said yes to this thing, so you need it. It's like, well, actually, but for me, this shifted. Yeah. And then for
yeah.
them, they're like, it's a yes and it's a yes. Like it's, and it can change, but like
Right.
they would need to sit with it and be like, okay, is this really true for me? Maybe a day or 2 or 3, but I think
Yeah,
when they are embodied in it, they do get their answers a lot faster. Whereas like when you are stepping into it after maybe 30 years of living one way, it
right.
does take practice to like really look at it, like you were saying, and practice to shift and change in that. And it can be scary. So it's great to like have a community that's going to support you, or just have conversations,
Yeah,
because it is scary to shift and change, because then your relationships could potentially shift and change.
yeah, your whole world.
Your whole
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I could talk to you all day long. Let's see. Where
Uh-huh.
should we wrap this up on? I'm kind of leaning into, how do you stay aligned day to day? How do you
Mm.
like that? How do you
Okay,
have
I like
daily
that. Yeah.
practices that
Well,
support you?
as a projector, it's really just like noticing my energy level, like how I'm feeling, and trusting that. So manifestors, projectors, and reflectors, we are not considered energy beings. We get our energy from other people. And so sometimes that energy might not be the best energy.
Interesting.
So yeah, we don't have the motor. I mean, we are, it's the language is so interesting in human design. So like, don't take that literally, like,
Right.
but that what it means is like, yeah, we wake up, we have energy, but like we deplete a lot faster than the generators and manifesting generators, where they're just like, go, 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 go. And you're like, how do you
Mm.
have all that energy? And for manifestors though, you do go through like spurts of times where you're just so energized. And then there's other times where you're like, wow, it's been a week and I'm still feeling tired. Like I feel like the hermit,
Yeah.
like
Mine, hermit's on my chart somewhere. I know it is
it
because
is.
I'm
You are a hermit. Yeah.
like,
So on top of that, but yeah, for me though, it's just really checking in with myself and like what is true for me and what feels right and noticing when I am feeling more drained. Like I take inventory of like, okay, where was I at? What was I doing? I never like, well, I don't say never. It's very rare these days that I get into my not self theme, which is bitterness. And when I do, it's like, oh, okay, where am I ignoring that part? And having the voice of saying no to things. So like even where I work now, it's like I just graduated from neurosomatic intelligence, which is incredible. If you guys don't know about
congrats.
that, look it up. They have a podcast called Trauma Rewired, and it's incredible. And it's changing my life. It's simple, but it's really complex. But like so now my work's like, okay, what are you gonna do? When are you gonna like blah 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 all the things? And I'm like, I just got done with this course and it's a no right now. Like a no as in bringing and having a huge presentation. I'm like, this is deep brain like science and your body and all the things. I'm like, I want to feel like I feel confident in it, but it's like I want it to like settle within so that when I am showing up that I feel just like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, totally.
But it feels good to be like, no, like and
Yeah.
feel confident in my no, not
Yeah.
scared about it. Like,
Yeah.
right. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
no, I'll let you know when I'm ready. And this is what I see and how I would like to bring it to the table. And they're like, okay, cool. But like before I would have been scared because I'm like, oh my God, are they going to fire me? Or are they going to like pressure me to do it or
Yeah.
ultimatum? And they're just like, they received it so well. And I'm like, all right,
Where are
but
you working right now?
I'm back at Mountain State's Early Head Start. So that's where I believe I was. Was I there when we interviewed? Oh, I think I wasn't.
I think you, yeah,
Yeah,
would,
I
because
left.
so you're doing social work there. Is that right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm back
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
social work
Okay. Cool.
realm. I'm a family consultant, so I work with pregnant women and families with children up to the age of
Amazing.
3. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
amazing.
beautiful work. And you have to be eligible, so generally high adversity stuff
Gotcha.
like that. So,
Yeah.
but it's a voluntary program, so it's incredible. Um, and we do a lot in the community. It's really great, but it is very taxing on our nervous system,
Oh my God.
and so finding this work has been really helpful. And so just knowing like balancing that out, when to say no and not, yeah, that's really where it's at. Like your yeses and your nos make everything and just
Yeah.
trusting your body.
Yeah. I love
And
that so
that's where
much.
I'm at. Yeah.
Yay. I'm
So
so
people make it
excited. Look at you. Like this is, and I knew
and then
it.
we
This is
we
so
need a coffee
silly.
date.
We totally need a coffee date
Especially
for
then
sure.
you bringing up the somatic stuff. I'm like, let's talk more because this
Yeah.
is like cutting edge. I mean, they've been doing research on somatics for so long, and there's been articles published and everything like for over 20 years, but it's like, why are we not talking about this?
Right.
Because if we get
Yeah.
our nervous systems regulated, then it's easier to be in our truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and so much beautiful change can happen, and it is happening. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the
The
frontiers.
fire in the
Well,
world and not
yes.
hooked on the Western worldy stuff that we won't go down that rabbit hole.
No. So find out what your human design is.
Yeah. Oh, I
Strategies
love
authority.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, Jackie, this is so good. You truly, it's honestly, it was kind of funny because we have joint mutual friends who I've talked
Yeah.
to. And like, how's Jackie? And then you're in my phone. I spelt your name wrong, so I didn't think you were in my phone. Anyway, there's
Oh.
been whole things like so silly. But now I feel like even as Matilda's turning 2, like I can feel this whole new woman being like, my
Mm,
baby's 2. Now I'm like have a little bit more, I don't know,
yeah.
capacity. And it's funny because there is more things like coming into my life, being like, yes, look here, but embracing all those chapters because I don't know, I created this life and I choose to keep like, learning the lessons, whether it's the good, the bad, or the ugly, and being like, okay, I've got this, but what am I learning from it? And how do I keep moving forward and align more? And yeah, I just love it. And I love
Yeah.
you.
And just, yeah, loving it and trusting it, right? And then
Yeah.
shifting and pivoting when it's like, ooh, this does not like, okay, this makes me angry. Like, how do I
Yeah.
balance my life, or how can I operate at work to make it more easeful? But you know, I don't really, is it the same work you're doing that you were doing a while ago?
Yeah. Public involvement.
Yeah.
And honestly,
Oh,
the public
I
involvement
mean,
piece is amazing. I work in an
is it?
engineering company, an engineering corporate company. They want to be the biggest North American engineering firm. So much of that does not align with me as a human being. My
Yeah.
immediate team very much aligns, but to a point, right? Like I really want to be doing energy work and coaching women and hosting chakra workshops. So I'm working there.
Oh, I just finished the chakra course. It's like so fascinating, you know, it's like you learn so much, but it's like, man, when those opportunities come, it feels good to like dive back into it and just like, oh, just because it's so easy in the grind to forget,
Yeah.
you
Well, like you
know,
said,
and
it's the journey. Like it's like
mhm.
you think you've figured, well, you don't, I never think I figured myself out, but then something changes and then
Sometimes.
something changes. And you're like, even in the somatic course, like we're going
Yeah.
through the chakras, but there's
Oh,
so much depth to each chakra. Like
so
I'm
much.
just taking what I'm like is a yes. Like some of the stuff
Yeah.
is a no. Like don't go there yet. You're not ready for it, or I'm not ready to go there with you, universe. But it's it's just opening the gate even more than before to be like, this is a lifetime journey. And you can't always be in the weeds with yourself, right? Like you can't. So
No,
just get out there
no.
and live and love.
Yes.
But
Yeah. And then it's like, but like you said, it's like, oh, like for me, I'm like, okay, I figured this out. And then I'm like, oh, wait, nope, there's more work to do here. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, so yeah, it is a journey, and just having that humility in it all. And sometimes, yeah, we get stuck in the weeds. So it's really great to have community or people, you
yes,
know, to be like, come here, let me just pull you out there a little bit. Let's have some fun, you know?
totally, exactly. Or just give me a hug. That's really what I
Yeah,
need right now.
give me a hug, let me cry, and hopefully tomorrow I'll wake up feeling a little better. Man, I don't
Totally.
know, the astrology the last couple years has been really intense. So,
I've even
a lot
started
of
following it because I wasn't, I stepped away for a little bit. And then the last, really just this year, I've started following it again because I'm like, what is happening? I want to know ahead of time.
yeah, I'm like, I have not been this emotional, and so I'm like, what in the world? And then I'm like, oh, this and this is happening. Okay, like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I have a
Again, it gives you like just peace and like, I'm not crazy, which we all need all the time.
and sometimes, man, it's like, whoa, I feel really delusional right now. And then I'll listen to a forecast, and then I'm like, oh, okay, thank goodness. Cause I literally was like, do I need to go like see a psychiatrist?
Like, the planets are just
Anyway,
doing something.
just yeah, just throw it, make it, yeah, exaggerate there, but you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, life
Yay.
is good though.
Good. Yes, I'm so excited for you. Thank you again for joining me. And we have many more conversations to come. I know we do.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you, Gemma.
Thank you.